everyone, it's Emily. Welcome back on my channel. Today's video is going to be my August wrap up. I'm going to be talking about the books that I have read this month. It was an okay month. I feel like in the beginning it was really strong, and then I kind of got a little bit in a reading slump after this huge book. Kind of got a little discouraged there. So I'm just going to go through them and let you know what I read. The first book I finished this month was an audiobook, and it was the last one by Alexandra Oliva. And I have to say it's going to be really hard to wrap it up without saying some mild spoilers, which I don't really think they were spoilers because I saw the ending coming like a million miles away. Like from the beginning you kind of know, but if you want to know nothing, once the picture is gone you can come back. But basically you're following a woman who is part of a TV reality show like Surviving into the Woods. And then things start being a little weird, and yet there's a lot of back and forth between while she just arrives to that surviving show and then like a couple weeks later. But again, mild spoilers, but kind of the apocalypse that happens while she's on the show, and then she's not sure that's what's happened. She's kind of in denial. But to be honest, it was really obvious from the beginning, so can't say that I loved it because I was expecting kind of something else to be shocking since it was so obvious. So yeah, it was a little meh, you know, it was a thriller sci-fi, I guess, but I believe I give it 3 stars. It was okay, it just wasn't mind-blowing. Every month in my TBR I make you vote for a book you want me to read that month, and last month you voted for Shattering Bone by Hugo, and I have to say I had really low expectations going into this book because in my head it was a go through this trilogy before reading Six of Crow. Not that you're forced to, it's just that I thought it was going to be more simple since it's the same world and everything. And since my expectations were so low, it's probably the reason that I ended up really enjoying it. I can kind of see why people didn't love it as much. I feel like towards the end it gets a little too much like romance. Again, for my taste, I'm not usually on romance, but this is a YA fantasy series. You're following the main character and she basically kind of discovers that she has magical powers. I mean, who doesn't want to read that? So I really enjoyed it. Definitely continuing the trilogy. I might include the second one in next month. I feel like I've been starting a lot of trilogies and not finishing them. I really need to like force myself to read them like one after the other. But my TBR was so big that I ended up not continuing, so I need to do that soon. I then finished another audiobook. This time it was One of Us is Lying by Karen M. McManus. And again, I kind of had low expectations, and I would say this is kind of a Breakfast Club murder mystery type thing. Basically, there's a couple kids in a room, they're all in detention, and then one of them has allergic reaction and he's allergic to peanuts, so one of them die and one of them must have killed him, so you have to figure out throughout the book who would want him to die. Basically everyone. He wasn't necessarily a really nice person, so basically you go through the book into I don't want to say more than that. Basically it's the mystery is who killed him, who's lying to the police and everyone else, and you're following them one by one, and I enjoyed it a lot actually. So I ended up giving it 3.75. I think if you like YA mystery a little bit, I definitely recommend this book. I enjoyed it a lot. It was good. It was a solid one, and audiobook was also good. I feel like sometimes audiobook can be hit and miss. This one was a good one. Then Tome Topple started, and I really tried. I did finish Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I've been wanting to read all of his books, and this one was definitely a tome. There's over 500 pages. There's like 580 something. So not a small book. And I feel like Tome Topple, I could have just read like big YA books and go through so many, but this was a solid one. It's not written tiny. It's an adult fantasy series. Actually, it was written as a standalone to begin with, so it stands on its own really well. So if you don't want to have to wait for next ones, because he is planning on continuing, but not anytime soon. And it was a really solid read. If you like Brandon Sanderson, I definitely recommend this. The magic system, once again, fantastic. The world building, fantastic. I just never want to review them giving anything because I go into them not knowing anything. That way my mind is just blown every single time. But basically the magic system is related to colors, and I just thought it was fascinating. So if you were looking for a new fantasy adult book to read, you need to read this. It was awesome. I give it like 4.5 or something. It was good. I tried to continue Tome Topple And I didn't finish the next book during Tongtapel because what is this? This is officially the biggest book I've read since I started BookTube last year. It's ridiculous. There's like 1.2k-ish pages, and it is It by Stephen King. I have been so intimidated and I haven't been wanting to read more Stephen King's because all of his books are so big, but everyone keeps raving about them, so I decided that it was time. It's Halloween coming up, and there is the movie coming up in September, so I just needed to read it. I'm really happy I did. It took me forever. I had the goal to read like around 100 pages a day, and it definitely helped because some parts are really, really slow, and some of the parts are really interesting, so I would read a little bit more than that, but you need to like give yourself little breaks when you're reading this. It is an adult horror book, and there's a lot of disturbing shit happening here. Like, let's just call it what it is. Disturbing. There is a couple scenes that are like literally terrifying, but most of the time it's mostly a sense of dread throughout the book. You're seeing a lot of the action happening through the eyes of the kids, and you can really feel their fear. And I feel like Stephen King was really good to just make you feel like a kid all over again and what you're scared of when you're a kid. And it was really good. The writing was good. Again, quite a bit happens because it's so big. It kind of is slow paced sometimes, and I can understand why people can't finish it. But yeah, really great horror book. However, the ending and like what happens in the last like 100 something pages, not a fan of. Like, not a fan of it at all. In my review on Goodreads, I did put it in the like spoiler thing. You can click on it to see the spoiler. I would kind of recommend to read that before reading the book because I wouldn't want someone to go through this and then be super disappointed too. But that's just my opinion. I still think a lot of people would enjoy it, but I just thought that was really like bad taste. Like, I'm still not over it. I'm not happy with the ending, but I'm still happy I read it. So I ended up giving it 3.5. Throughout the book, it was an easy 4 stars. It was really solid, but then the ending happened. So yeah. The next book I did end up DNFing, but I still want to talk about it because I've read more than like 50%, actually listened to more than 50%, so I still count the ones I end up reading at least 50%. So this one was Beartown by Frederick Backman. I actually read A Man Called Youve not long ago, loved it, so I decided to read more of his books, and I saw that book available as an audiobook. I decided to listen to it, and you're following basically a town, Beartown, and what's really popular there, since it's in the middle of nowhere, is Aki. And I have nothing against Aki. I'm Canadian, I'm okay with it, but it wasn't my main issue. Obviously, if you like Aki, you're gonna like the book a lot more than I did. But it's mostly I just could not care for the characters. Like, A Man Called Youve, I really cared about the characters. That was one of the things I liked the most. And then in that one, I just really didn't care. And then a thing happened, once again in that book. And I tried to continue a little bit after, and I just couldn't do like one more hour after. I just couldn't do it. So if you have read this book, I know some people told me that it gets better, everything gets wrapped up really nicely at the end, and I'm sure it does, but I don't think I'm gonna continue it, so I'm just gonna officially DNF Beartown. I still want to read more of his books, but now I'm a little less in a rush. Next, I read I See You by Claire McIntosh. As you can see, I've been starting the whole like horror, thriller, mystery books. I mean, fall is approaching. That's just when I start like reading just that for like 4 months, and then I get over it and don't read much throughout the year. And this one you're following a woman who has 2 kids. She has a new husband, and one day she sees her picture in the newspaper, and she's kind of not 100% sure it's her picture, but it seems to be for like a dating website. There's like a number, an address, and everything, and she's kind of weirded out, but then she realized that this happens often. There's other women that have their picture there, and then she realized that those women are being killed or followed, or things happen to them. So she's just trying to figure out and help the police figure out who's doing this, who's behind that. And yeah, I did like it. It was kind of just okay good throughout the book. The ending had a few twists. Obviously it's a thriller, and I did enjoy them, but they weren't that mind-blowing. I feel like when you read a lot of thrillers, eventually you can kind of see things happening, or even if you didn't see it coming, they're not always like really good twists. But I do think it was a solid thriller. I gave it 3.5 stars, and if you're looking for another adult thriller to read towards the fall, this one is good. Wasn't my favorite one that I've read, but it was still pretty solid. So after it, I was basically in a cat reading slump. I had spent like 2 weeks trying to read it, and since I was kind of disappointed with the ending, it was kind of hard. I needed a pick-me-up, so I decided to continue my Harry Potter reread. This one is Harry Potter and Half-Blood Prince, which was my favorites growing up. I haven't read them in a couple years, and this is my first time reading them in English. And I have to say, still a very, very solid book. I loved it. I have to say, there's things I had forgotten that weren't in there. I really missed the DA group, and I felt like there wasn't enough school stuff happening. Like, for some reason, I really like when they're like studying and talking about what they're learning in class, and I feel like there was not enough of that in this one. With that said, still 5 stars. I absolutely love it. I don't know if it's like people feel the same, but it's like the fact that he's like obsessed with the book, and we're all obsessed with books. I don't know, I can relate. And I'm actually going to Orlando, Florida very, very soon, so I needed to, you know, refresh my memory a little bit more before going. So very excited. I finished it, 5 stars. Obviously, it's awesome. I've read a lot of big books this month. But to be honest, after finishing Harry Potter, I'm still feeling a little like not in the mood to read. I probably should continue Harry Potter, but I'm keeping the last one for Christmas because that's just what I want. But I've been like starting so many books and just putting them down and not being into it. But I've also, I'm halfway through, so I'm still gonna talk about it. I have read So You've Been Publicly Shamed by Jon Ronson, and like I was saying, I'm like literally halfway through it. And I've been wanting to read more nonfiction, and this one is basically an author that is following people that have been publicly shamed. Basically people that say something stupid on the internet, and then people go after them, and then he just sees what happened to them throughout those like X number of years later. Like the woman that commented on Twitter that she was white so she couldn't get HIV in Africa, which I feel like the author is doing a really good job trying to not make you hate one side more than the other. However, I don't think some of these people are, I mean, the author is really trying hard, but for some people, I kind of don't feel 100% bad for them. And if you have read this book, you might know who I'm talking about. But for some people, I really feel bad about them. Some of them less than other. Let's just go there. So it's interesting. I don't think it's going to be a 5-star read, or maybe not even a 4. I feel like there's a lot of repetition, but so far I'm enjoying it, and I thought I would just give it a little shout out. I probably will include it at the end of my wrap up in September, but I just thought I would include it in here because, you know, more info. By the way, I've been thinking about starting to include some stats in my wrap-up videos. Let me know if you would be interested, because I know I was receiving comments letting me know that I was reading a lot of YA, and I really disagree. Like, my goal is to keep it 50-50, and right now it's around 50-50 and more adult than YA. So let me know if you would like to see those stats, because this year has been really different than last year. Last year, like almost 50% of my reads were fantasy, and then a good portion of the rest was sci-fi. This time, fantasy is still my main one. Sci-fi is much bigger than last year, and then both of them barely make like maybe 60%, and there's so much more. So things have been pretty different this year. I don't think I had the best reading year so far. There's still time to change it. Anyway, let me know. Don't forget to give this video a big thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Don't forget to subscribe to not miss any future videos, and I will see you in my next one. Bye.